Hello, good evening, everybody. It's not on the dot, but I don't think anybody's going to complain about that. So welcome to the panel, the discussion panel about the movie Sinners. If that's not why you're here, then you're in the wrong place. Or maybe, no, in the unintended place. I won't say that you're in the wrong place, because you'll have fun with us. So before we go across the table and have everybody introduce themselves, I would like to say a disclaimer or two at the beginning. Number one, there will 100% be spoilers. I just want to go on the record. I don't think anybody here has not seen it, but just in case, there will be spoilers. Number two, we'll have probably a couple of extra guest subject direct related guests up here joining us for a brief point. So that's a possibility. I hope that doesn't throw anybody off. There is a panel right after us. And I mean right after us. So we are going to have to keep tight on this and hope that we can do it. Otherwise, we can just continue any more discussion out in a common area or something. Because, keeping this to an hour will be difficult. All right, so I'm Gregory Parks. I'm moderating. And let's start to my left and then have everybody down the table introduce themselves, please. Oh, sorry.
Hello, I'm Lathan. I'm a giant movie and horror and pop culture nerd. I also study social anthropology, biophysics, and have a particular interest in folklore, mythology, and comparative religion. So I have many things to say about this, and I'm super excited to get into it. But yeah, going right along.
My name is Damarra. All pronouns. I don't know. This movie was one of those ones where lots of great movies happen. Lots of movies are amazing and really great. Very few movies I feel change you after you see them and have a deep amount of impact on you feel different after that movie. And this was one of them on multiple different points and layers, which is wild. So I have to talk about it with everyone as much as possible.
I'm Charlene. My pronouns are faith and fair. I am just a huge fan of horror, of vampires, of black people. And so this movie just hit the pocket of everything that really touches my heart. I watched it so many times, I have to talk to somebody else about it. I keep talking about it, I can't stop talking about it. And so I have to talk about it some more for another hour.
Hi, I'm Alicia Rose, she, her. I am a filmmaker and a twin, so this hits two of my interests here. I have not been blown away by a movie in years like this, jaw dropped when I watched this movie. So I'm so excited to be here, so very excited to be here.
T. Aaron, all pronouns, and I'm a former touring musician, so I was Sammy growing up. I mean, not in the 30s, but otherwise. And yeah, background broadcasting, when I saw Sinners the first time in theaters, I didn't believe it was real. I must have passed out and just manifested my dream motion picture. So went back and saw it 3 more times, and now I saw it streaming as of today. So who knows how many more times. It's going to be on regular repeat rotation for quite some times.
To add on to that, not only is it streaming starting today, but it is the first movie streaming with BASL, Black American Sign Language.
Cool.
BASL. So.
Great. All right.
Pretty cool. Okay. First, starting out with a couple of quick facts about the movie. Number one, we know that this was a movie that Coogler had to bust his butt in order to make. And bust his butt he did against time constraints, against budgetary constraints. He made it all happen. faster than most people probably thought that he would. So that was amazing. It took $90 million to make, made $47 million first weekend, and everybody was, not everybody, but certain publications, certain parts of the industry were already considering it a failure and writing it off just because it didn't make its budget back in one weekend. Like,
Right.
you know, movies totally do that. They make, the big movies totally make their budget back in one weekend. And some people awesomely called that out online. And the second weekend, it only dropped 4% in sales from the second week. That is
4%.
Remarkably uncommonly low, especially for a movie in that genre or even a multi-genre movie. So again, it waved at the system, shall we say. It recently broke the record for highest grossing original movie, which was previously set by us in 2019. And it broke the highest opening weekend, or record for a highest opening weekend for an original film this decade so far. And that was previously held by Nope in 2022.
People like black horror.
Right.
What? And it is currently the most successful original movie of this decade. And it is now one of the most successful horror movies of all time, having passed The Exorcist to take the number 3 spot. Behind Jaws and It. So,
All right.
yeah, so it's up there with the greats. And last bit, actually, which was recently came out, producer Sev Oharian revealed that some of the extras' costumes were costumes that Ruth Carter already had created for the Blade movie that got scrapped.
Oh my God.
That was supposed to have taken place in the 20s. So,
Wait, was it gonna have Mahershala?
one of the which because there were several scripts and they started working and then but yes, Mahershala related.
I don't get a goddamn Mahershala Blade movie.
That isn't just. Yeah, really. I want to see that man. All right. So going to try to keep this. But we're not going to be able to. This is just going to be a big old love fest, geek fest, which is great. Let's start right out. So this movie, obviously, is a metaphor and imagery-packed movie. I'd like to go down the line and ask everybody to address one of those metaphoric or images that struck you the hardest among all of them. Anybody can start.
All right, I guess I will just jump in with holy blackity black people in a black movie Black Man. So I was not prepared for something that was just so deeply rooted in African American history, culture, and narrative to start with. And I'm just gonna jump right into, I know this is not necessarily parting on the narrative, but on the metaphor narrative, but the aspect of just how this movie crosses over from horror to being folklore and historical fiction, and in a very big story about community, and connection in that particular sense. The metaphor in terms that struck me very, very heavily wasn't simply just the horror metaphor of the monsters coming to steal everything that we have made or worked for, but the metaphor of building for ourselves under oppression, under lack, and the beauty that comes out of that there's, despite all the things that were acted in terms of racism, of oppression, of poverty, but the amount of beauty and complexity and culture and community and love that is still built in those circumstances, in that environment. And that was and that theme being maintained of what is beautiful and completely our own, that persists through adversity, through all kinds of adversity, right to the very end of the movie. So that, I guess, yeah, it's kind of like the metaphorical telling there of that perseverance of joy and of connection through, like, be it through racism, against racism or against vampires, or yeah, that's what stuck out to me. One of them.
I'm gonna keep mine real short, partially because one of the things that really stood out to me for a metaphor, I'm probably gonna talk a whole lot about later. But I would say that, and then just the whole parallel of being a cultural parasite and like what that looks like, how that happens, the different ways that it manifests, and all of that. I found like one of the most fascinating parts about this movie.
I think the one that stuck to me the most was the relationship between vampirism and turning and organized religion. Like the visual metaphor of the baptism scene that I call it, in the river. It was one of those in which there was a pocket of my heart that I realized that I have not unpacked, that I have not deconstructed from major religion, that I was just like, oh, it's going to become like holy water, and we're going to be done, and this is going to be done, and that didn't happen for me.
Right.
And I was just like, oh, that's me. Oh, there's something in me that was still attached, and hearing Rennick be like, no, they said that to me too, and that's a lie, but this is the truth. I had to lean back in my chair and just be like, okay, well, I gotta move on from that one.
I was actually going to talk about that too, but that scene just really struck out to me. So it's like, oh my gosh, when something that's evil starts saying the Lord's Prayer with you, and you're like, well, what do I do now? But I was thinking about family, about found family, and then also in a weird way forced family and assimilation from Sammy and the twins, and then how we have this family with everyone in the town who are people of color, or black people, and then also that kind of family, then the forced family, which is assimilation with Remick trying to force these people to become his hive, especially if you think of the Rocky Road Dublin scene, which is like one of the creepiest scenes I've ever seen in a movie. It's, again, this forced, you are my people type of thing. So, maybe people. Who are your people? Maybe that's a better way of saying it. Who are your people?
I think as far as metaphor or symbolism goes, right off the bat was just the way that Smoke and Stack represented sort of duality, like tying back to the boys in terms of like the double consciousness, with Stack representing sort of like black exceptionalism and presentation, performative, but not in a negative connotation. Where he takes a space, clearly was working for the North Side Chicago mob. I mean, the cut of his suit from how he dressed, where he was like a tailored 1920s three-piece, pinstripe, whereas Smoke was much more detached collar, and it was more kind of like I'm gonna work hard and prove that we're good enough. And it doesn't matter if they see it or not, because they're both doing the same thing. So clearly Smoke is working for, again, going to Costa Nostra as being more of a South Side Chicago organized crime gangs, which were a lot more working class, a lot more like kind of stay in the shadows, versus the North Side, which is like the Al Capone, like the Flash, and the fact that Stack won, so to speak, because he survived and kept things going. It's sort of like a really close, almost eerie parallel to like, well, this is still, even though we don't do jazz and blues, it's now more rock, pop, hip hop, or the over the top, like the black scent and other affectations that we have adapted in order to survive and thrive. Again, performative without negative connotation. Like, that was fucking brilliant.
Again, let's get back to the religious, because that came up a few times. Let me speak into the mic more. Getting around to the religious aspects and the broad religious aspects of it. With the, like, what did people think about presence of both religion based in culture ways, in culture ways passed down, versus, or even versus face to face with the, I guess for lack of a better term, forced or coerced religion, and how that showed up in there. Like, what were some of the ways that you felt that duality or that conflict showed up? Like for one example, for like Wunmi Mosaku, like she definitely was the culture ways the face of the more what am I trying to say? Of the culture ways that were passed down that had been actively driven out by this the parasite, the colonizer, that kept coming up again and again. What were some of the ways that you saw that in action?
I really love the mentioning about like the baptism scene and the scene of Remick saying like this prayer. And so like that's why are you able to do that? That's not how that particular, because there's always been for a very long, for like most of our culture of vampire fiction is vampires are this dark and evil force that can be forced out and or repelled by belief in the holy and the divine. Mm-hmm. So he's saying the Lord's Prayer, isn't that the holy and the divine? Like, is it? Like, and then what we see, like with Annie, who plays the kind of this Van Helsing role of knowing what these spirits are, knowing how they work and how to fight them, because she is a practitioner of divine technologies. And what this movie does is challenge the idea of how do we define the divine. And this, in a really clever way of putting the Christianity that Del Snow points out was forced upon us, versus the things that we brought with us that are in the blues, that are in hoodoo and these practices. So hoodoo as when African people were brought to the Americas, this is something that is like, it's lost a lot, is that we brought our knowledge, our philosophy, our spirituality, our technologies with us and preserve those even under oppression. Hoodoo is one of these particular expressions in the Americas that has a base in Central African spirituality, West African spirituality, and interacts a lot with Christian and Christo-pagan belief systems and indigenous belief systems. It's a collection of herbology, of ecology, of spiritual practices, and spiritual technologies that have been used throughout Black history as support, as ways of healing, as ways of protection, and are deeply embedded actually even in Black church practices. Like the original African Episcopal Church had many hoodoo elements that were like embedded in it from other practitioners, and a lot of that got suppressed or even hidden. You would have members of Black churches who you would go to sermons talking about like the evils of practicing witchcraft, but then would be practicing hoodoo at home as part of a way of taking care of their family and of the community. So the way that was integrated in, and you would see these different, and particularly the parallels of like you would see Sandy Spaulding talking about like don't turn from God, and seeing the elements of Annie talking about hoodoo and how they were both simultaneously put kind of juxtaposition, but never in direct conflict, because they've never really been truly at odds. They're more like different interpretations of similar spiritualities, but recognize that there's a deeper knowledge that is there that in the way that Christianity was forced upon us as a people, the deeper knowledge that actually protect you from the force of evil weren't really there, because evil was being forced upon you through that practice. Whereas hoodoo has this knowledge, this connection to how to protect oneself from evil and protect oneself from the oppression of evil forces that was missing in that prayer, in that baptism and whatnot. And I love how those elements are so well represented, all the way up until the point, even at the end of the very, very end credits, where Sam is playing this little light of mine. This sense of like, even though he has rejected a particular lifestyle of his father, and just continues to play the blues, he's never lost the light of divinity. He was never separated from the good teachings that his father gave him, but his interpretation of them are much more aligned with what also came before.
Right.
I thought it was really interesting, like, the whole idea of what religion or what group is right. What happens when you follow someone or believe in someone because they're telling you that their thing is right and they can save you and they've got the answer and all that kind of shit. But then also, how are you to be able to say or tell that they don't? Like to, oh God, what was her name? Andy? Yeah, to Andy's point of like, when he says like, this shit doesn't work and blah blah, she's like, well, you're alive, aren't you? How do you know that's not me? Like, I think that whole thing is fascinating of like, how can you know something is or isn't the answer, and what can happen when you take the chance on something being the answer, and then you might end up being wrong. And so I thought that whole like just back and forth like how we throughout the movie was very interesting.
I'm sorry.
Well, I could, but
No. Well, I had a thought that popped up about Annie and about how everyone, they believed Annie immediately. Nobody questioned her. Like, yeah, these are vampires. No one was like, are you sure? Because they knew that she had this knowledge. They knew that, she practiced this. Don't question her because, otherwise you may die. But it made me think about also the parallel with, Sammy's father, who was like, question everything. You can't trust him. He is not warm. He's just like, he's a person you talk to and it's just like, cold. He's so cold. Well, Annie is so warm. And how, to me, heartbreaking is in the very end, where when his son comes in, he's covered in blood. He's got this huge scratch on his face. He has this, broken guitar in his hand, and his first words are, "Put down the guitar, drop the guitar," instead of, "Let me comfort you, my son. What's happened to you? Put down the guitar." And that kind of, justification of Annie, she would have just taken him into her arms, and then this father's just like, "Put down the sin. Put down the sin."
Like I fucking told you.
Yep.
I think going to the question of consensual relationship with religion, with the religion that we see in the church, versus being like forcibly brought in, like he was trying to convert Sammy. I feel like, from what we know of how religion got its way into Black culture, that was the point in your day in which you just got to not work. Like, there's a certain degree for me that I feel like there isn't a relationship of consent at the beginning of how religion affected us, because it was your choice was either be in the field in this incredibly hot weather, like collecting bales full of heavy fucking cotton, or you can sit in this church, which is slightly cooler, for 2-3 hours and be indoctrinated. And like the same thing of like between them and between Remick is that both require like a level of sacrifice of your freedoms, of your personhood, of what it is that you have, like your genuine talent. Both of them were trying to just get something from parts of their congregation, either them being present, or in Sammy's case, what his gifts are.
Well, with the question of religion, I think one of the grooviest parts of the whole film was this question, this underlying question of faith. And it was never addressed directly, but if you go back and upon rewatching it, and to your point, they believed Annie immediately. And even going back before that, they knew they were open up the juju. Every time someone had a decision that was based in faith, they worked in their favor. And then conversely, with Remick and his people, they were trying more to push belief And not to get too cynical, but if you look at like, especially the rise of like Judeo-Christian right-wing interpretations of Judeo-Christian texts, especially in the 70s to 80s, with televangelists and miracle healers, they were always like, well, let me show you what I can do. You need to join, because look at what you can have. And it's more about pushing this idea of, I have evidence, I can give you things, as opposed to like, well, you have to believe, you have to have faith. Even the crux of like the end of the third act, when they, Smoke and Mary witness Stack and Mary witness Smoke kill Annie, because he has faith that he will see Annie and his child again. Now there's no evidence, she didn't say like, once she was bitten, she's like, you gotta let me go, it's gonna be alright, he believed her. And that was huge, I thought, and I didn't notice that until my second or third time watching it. I'm like, holy shit, everyone who takes this leap of faith, an actual faith, not religion, not even necessarily spirituality, just like pure faith, it works out. And if you really think about it, to get like old school, that's all black people have been working with for a long time.
Right.
I mean, 4 centuries plus, you know, at century number 1, there was no reason to think it would ever get better. Century number 2, that's crazy talk. 3, 4, and now we're looking at, you know, we ended involuntary servitude in 1860. Sort of. And we're still having conversations now about when shit's gonna get better, with the idea being that there is a belief, there is some faith that things can get better. So hopefully, Coogler and Annie are right. I mean, not hopefully, we know it's gonna work out. And we're gonna look good doing it.
There we go.
Isn't it good? You know,
Right?
Right, yep.
The mentioning of Annie, I'm going to try to get back to the religion thing because it ties into a couple of other things. But bringing back the talk of Annie, the discussion of Annie, the first time we encounter her in her store, and Smoke said, and he's like, and he challenges her, and she's like, how do you know? And she starts talking. She gives that very short monologue about how he doesn't know. He has no idea to know. He has no way to know how, if it worked or not, or maybe the fact that he is here to question her is proof that it worked. And when she's telling him this, and these words are washing over him, there was something like the outer edge of the screen, like went out of focus, and it focused. It's like it not only put more focus on her and her words and her strength, but it also, to me, was an indicator of the things that lie just out of our vision. Things that, we can maybe tell are there or have a sense are there, but if you look directly at them, you can't pick it out, you can't make it out. And that was one of the first examples in the movie that I started noticing some of the cinematography and some of the cinematography choices. So, all this to say, what were some of your favorite things that you noticed about the movie and how it was shot, how the frame was used, what imagery? I mean, yeah, sure, just get it out of the way. Just get it out of the way. The juke joint scene.
Yeah.
Right.
With all the ancestors and literally setting the roof on fire. That was
Yes.
Columns comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do we want to say more about that one, or do we just want to go?
Understood. We got it.
It's actually legitimately one of the first times I've actually been shocked in a movie before, like stunned, shocked in a way. It's like, oh my god, and then someone got killed, and it's like actually positively shocked, like jaw dropping, like what am I watching? Shocked in a movie. Like I wish I could bottle up the experience of watching that scene and just hold it in me, like whatever. I wish I could relive that. Like that was just one of the most amazing things I've seen on screen. I'm like, I'm getting choked up. It's just so cool.
And it was like, I can't think of a family truly way to say it. That was so fucking cool in a movie full of fucking cool scenes. Because like even in the beginning, that
Right.
slow pan, because they never once said the word Jim Crow, and they never fucking had to. Because that opening scene when he's at the shop, you're like, oh, this is the colored side. This is a colored
Right.
businesses.
Yeah.
Here's the white side, and that was just an uninterrupted shot. That was cool. Again, it's after 10. It was cool as fuck.
Yes.
And I said that so many times in the theater.
I loved the wide sweeping shots that would show the whole environment. When they were in the fields, you would see everyone is working, everyone is moving, how you would follow like Sammy through the house with all the kids. The movie really used that to emphasize like the continuity of community, like how people were living, from like going through the shops and like how the shops were connected, like that they owned like one shop on one side of the street for black people, another side of the other street, and then watching, it's like, yep, I'm just casually going between the stores because that's how this community actually works. The movie really did a very solid job of showing that there was interconnectedness between all the things that were happening, that there was depth to the way people did things and the reasons as to why they would do things in a certain way, and it felt very full. Like at no point does the movie feel like things are just happening just to happen. It's like from the way the food was cooked in the juke joint to everything, it just all has this interconnectedness and this sense of like there are people driving all the things happening. And I love that.
I think, like, I have so many little parts that I really, really love. Like, the first time that I watched it, the thing that I noticed, or the thing that really woke me up was Annie striking the match in the tune of the music.
Yes.
And it got me down a whole rabbit hole about the concept of, or a philosophical concept of diegetic versus non-diegetic music, and how that represents like her connection to something that's higher and outside of herself. And then, like, going back to the juke joint scene that we all know, like all of it touched my heart, but like seeing it pull back and just seeing that one little homie still breaking it down next to cornbread while he's just sitting there, it took me out. Like, the whole thing was so emotional, and I was at such a peak, and then I see those two right over there, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't take a dang thing serious. My heart is so full, and I'm so happy, and seeing so many different representations of so many different tribes, all in the same space, whether or not it was past and future, and getting to see my ballerina girl.
Oh my god.
Right.
I just seeing her just like right into the scene. I was like, I didn't expect that. I'm dead.
Right.
If I could say one more thing, you were talking about the fullness and everything. So the production designer, director of this movie was Hannah Beachler. She was the first black woman to win an Oscar for production design. She won it for Black Panther. And I thought about his amazing job. Like, I have a cousin who is 90, well, she was born in 1935. So this is what she grew up with. And it made me think, like, it really made me think of, like, you know, the type of care that was put into this. That I've had conversations with my cousin, and she talks about things like going to a one-room church where it didn't have a bathroom, they had to pump, you know, water and things like that. It truly made me feel connected in a way with, you know, family members and people like, you know, who actually dealt with that. So I thought it was the closest thing. I felt immersed in it. I felt really immersed in it.
On the juke joint scene, we'll have lots. I also want to add, like, I've read a lot of descriptions of people who played blues and played jazz who have gone and listened to like traditional like African drumming and rhythms and whatnot, and realize like this is like how similar it is, and the level of continuity between beats and music that's thousands of years old and things that's played today, but watching it, but also hearing as he's playing, and then hearing the way that the traditional griot drumming just kind of blends right in, and when the guitar kicks in, everything just has this continuous flow, and realizing there is a continuous beat, a continuous rhythm that has been passed down, that was preserved in stories and in songs and taught to kids when slave owners weren't looking, that was tapped into boards in cabins and hummed in fields, so much so, with so much consistency that you can play this music somewhere in the middle and it connects thousands of years back and hundreds of years into the future. Was just being able to actually hear and see that continuity of story and history was overwhelming. That survived intact through all of the bullshit that happened that could have destroyed it, but it maintained itself. Like, we maintained it. That was something that was the really striking thing about that whole scene for me.
A bonus question about that scene. What was the first point in the scene where your breath caught or where your eyes started tearing up?
As soon as they went to a culture that wasn't black related, that fucked me up. Because as soon as they started going to the ages, it's like, oh, okay, I see what they're doing. Like, that's really fucking cool, and I'm very excited to see that. And as soon as another culture popped, I was like, oh, and like, I don't know, something about that just like, that messed me all up. God, it was beautiful. Cause yeah, just that constant thread of like, they're all different, they're all their own things and have their own bits and pieces, but like that unifying thread of like how music impacts and affects and carries through and like brings these stories and these experiences, even though it's different, it is very much centered around the same thing and like.
And I think it also solidifies the fact that they are very much a part of that community, and like the sense of like found family and like who you choose to have faith in, who is there for you when you need them. Because right from the very early, it's like, hey, I need this much food, I need these things. Like that's I don't know. It seems like a lot. It's like it's gonna be great. And again, they have that faith, and they are part of that community that will support each other. And it shows that connection is like when the music starts playing, their ancestors are right there too. Their narrative is right there integrated because where those stories have intersected, where they have shared work and blood and joy and sorrow together has connected them. And so those stories all intertwine in that way, and they have that connection point. And that particular part was like seeing their ancestors join in the revelry was, yeah.
And speaking, going from there, I'd like to hop to jumping around because it doesn't have to be linear. But going into the representation in the movie. Like for starters, yes, blackie, black.
Right.
Awesome, great. But then you have the Delta Chinese element brought in, and the indigenous, the Choctaw element brought in. And for instance, when the husband in the shack says, "Oh, there ain't been any, there ain't any Indians around here for, how many miles," I was like, "Oh, they're on reses now." It's like, oh, of course. What are other small bits of representation that you all noticed in there, along with the larger, greater ones? Which ones did you see that hit you? We have already talked about Annie being believed, and people just not giving a second thought. What other representations did you see in the movie, or elements of representation did you see in the movie that stood out to you?
I really liked how they handled, I'll start really just big, but just narrative and the addressing passive without really going into it, just acknowledging that was something that existed, and how that actually, and from our perspective, from the perspective of people of color, because I think a lesser filmmaker, a lesser screenwriter would just made very unpopular and just had the forbidden love, the 30s, I think, back in the old,
Can I get that on a t-shirt? I don't know what I'm gonna wear, but I need a whole line just on a shirt.
But I mean, like, aside from the fact that yes, we've all been there, but just addressing that this is something that was real that was happening. It happened actually a lot more than I think we're going to talk about. As far as my recollection, maybe it's illustrious for me, but there's not a lot of contemporary or classic films, unless passing itself is like the plot device that even like acknowledges it as something that
Imitation of Life is first and only thing that comes to mind right now. And Showboat, maybe? I think there's something in Showboat? Yes, Showboat. Yeah, Imitations of Life and Showboat are the two things that come to mind. So yeah.
I like too with her, like, the weird ways that can affect stuff. Cause like, there was an interesting element of like her being passing and having been like in this other world mostly and like having this sort of innate sense of like, oh, I can handle this. Like I can fix it, I know what to do, like I've got the secret key to make this work, and then like fucked everything up. And like all these different weird ways that like you can have the best intentions and be as well-meaning as you want, but that doesn't mean that what you're doing is necessarily right or good. But yeah, her whole existence in that movie was very interesting to me.
I also think part of that, on both those points, is illustrating Mary's desire to feel more part of that family and the pain she was dealing with in terms of like she wasn't allowed to be with the people that she loved because of how she looked, because of how her skin came out. And part of her going out and trying to like get that particular like bring them back and see if they have actual like money to like bring in was like, how can I help? How can I actually do something that will bring more resources into this thing that we're trying to build? And honestly, I think what's interesting in the sense is like that is often where like darkness and corruption will try to find a way in. It's like when you need something, when there is a vulnerability or an inability to produce something for yourself, it's like, well, maybe if we let them help a little bit, even though these are like unproven outsiders, and that's typically the opening that when someone wants something from you, wants what you have, is they'll look for a weakness where you might need something, and then take advantage of that, which is exactly what they did to get the invite in, to start the whole cycle. Because if they were not losing money in the juke joint, there would be no reason to have these weird strangers come in, or even to talk with them, and they would have had to do something else. They would have had to look for a different opening, or just go someplace else entirely.
See, I've often thought, like, I feel like that's something Mary has done before, though. I think that before Stack had her shipped off to where she went, that she might have actually been the person who could, pass as white and then go be, I don't know, the honeypot or something. I think that's something that she's done before. And I personally feel like something happened and that's why Stack sent her off. But, like, that's something I feel like it wasn't just her, like, sticking your nose in. Like, I've never done so before. I think this is something she's used to doing. It was interesting. It was interesting.
Before we move on to the next thing, I also want to open up because all of us up here are black, but none of us is Chinese American. None of us is from any of the indigenous nations. So I want to take this brief moment to open up. If there anybody out in the audience who identifies with one of those other two groups that is not up here, who would like to say something about the representation of their particular group.
Not Chinese, but I have
Okay, yes, please, offer.
What is y'all's opinion on grace in both? Because there's a lot of grace out there, and because she was willing to put like life on her life, it was no longer needed.
I don't think anything wrong. I don't think
But
anything
on
wrong.
the other hand, though, they threatened her child.
Right.
And we all think that, we're gonna be stronger, we're gonna find my babies out there. They should have just let her go. I would have been out there. So I would like to hear y'all's opinion on that.
I have a list of like why they were basically screwed, and she heard them say that. She heard them say, "The Klan is coming for you. I know where your people live. I'm going to kill your kids. I just sexually harassed you in your own language." And I think people think it's so sexy. Oh, he sexually harassed her in her own language. They were fucked, sorry, no matter what. And Brian Coogler said this. He said that what she did was because she was a mother. It has nothing to do with people trying to suck people up. He literally said this. She did this because she was a mother. And I think it's something important to remember. I feel like, yeah, that's what I'm going to say. That's what I'm going to say on that.
I think, oh God, that, okay. Grace is so interesting to me because like, it's one of those situations that I think are the more important and meaningful kinds of questions in life, which is not is somebody necessarily right or wrong in what they did, but in the consequences and the impact of their decision, regardless. Because like, on the one hand, like, yes, they're threatening all these people they know, they have all these things stacked against them, they're threatening her child and all this stuff. Like, I don't think anybody could in good conscience say that like, her wanting to save her child and do something about those things was bad or wrong, but also she's the reason everyone there died.
Right.
Like everyone there's death and suffering after that is entirely her fault. Not entirely her fault because obviously the bad person, but like would not have happened had she not done that. And it's one of those things like that is true, but again, I still would not, you can't say that she was wrong for what she did. And I think that is far more interesting, that like sometimes there are no good choices. How could you possibly, on a human level, expect someone to like deal with that and just suck it up and move on? Like you can't. But there are still consequences. And so that is what I thought was so interesting about that, is there wasn't really anything of like, oh, she fucked up or she did wrong. It's just like, well, this is what happens now. Like, I don't know.
I think my, sorry if I could, I think that my beef with her doesn't start after Bo gets turned, it starts before that. Like, when we find out that Stack has been attacked by Mary and that something's going sideways, that even though Bo has been like the twins' long-term friend, and they exist in the same community, that instead of choosing to stay like the rest of the people who did stay in the juke joint and were like, these are my close personal people, these are my people, she was like, we have to go. Like, we didn't sign on for this part. And that is not, I don't mess with that. Like, in the way of like, she doesn't know until after Bo is turned that her daughter is in immediate danger, but her daughter isn't in immediate danger until after Bo is turned. So if they had like sat for a second, waited for them to figure out what was going on, what their next step should be, if she had chosen community outside of herself for like just a little bit longer, then she and her husband wouldn't have been in the situation that they were in.
I would have left. I would have left.
But I'm not a parent, so like I don't know. But I'm just like as far as like community aspects go, that for me I feel like that shows like the division between, like my third time watching it, my thought was she stays more on the other side of the street than Bo does. Because Bo hesitates to go back to the car.
Yes.
Bo was like, oh sure, I'm going to side with my wife in this moment, but his initial instinct wasn't to leave and abandon his friends, but hers was.
Well, I will say I give Grace a little grace. Only because, like, so the context, well, one, just really quick, like, touchback, like, she didn't have faith, and so things went pretty poorly for her. But also, like, in that time period, one of the only things that was as bad as being an N-word was being an N-word lover. And being found to be, like, collaborating or cahoots or helping out with, a marked business, because we knew that the Klan was coming. I mean, that opening scene where he was like, okay, we'll stay off your property. I was like, he's coming back. He's coming back. You know what's happening.
Yeah.
But I I will say, I think Cornbread fucked up when Grace did.
Yeah.
She was like, come on, man, he's back when you're
I don't,
had to go all the way out the woods.
I don't actually have, I don't know, I don't have quite as much, like, a seasoned and experienced predator came to a place with the intention of claiming victims for his own use, and specifically manipulated the situation to get in. It feels, first off, when things happened with Stack, first it was like, we need to get all of these witnesses out of here anyway. They were already sending people out, and like, we need to like pare this down to who we actually need. So wanting to leave at that particular point, so we're like, they're store owners. They're not former mafia who know how to like deal with like a dead body. So that particular like what they would have like done in that particular sense, it's kind of like at that particular moment doesn't really seem like a lot. And again, like Remick goaded him. He was going after everyone. He was playing on whatever weakness he could possibly find to get into their heads. And while yes, everyone in there died, all the other vampires died because they fought them. They were going to, like, they could the plan have been better how to, like, a little bit, inevitably, they were going to have to fight and kill this army of vampires, which would have marched on the town and consumed everyone there. There was no, like, and it was quite obvious, like when the Choctaw were hunting him down, they knew the threat that this person was. They knew how dangerous it would be to anyone who was around. And I find it difficult to really blame anyone in a situation when an active and powerful predator is gunning for you physically, psychologically, and judging the responses in that particular sense. And especially with how few options there really, really were. It kind of comes down to the, almost like whatever the argument is like, selling their own people, but it's like, but who was buying? Who was there with like guns saying, hey, give me this, or I'll go to your rivals over here and then they'll come in. Like those are, like, in those situations, it's really hard for me to like judge as a bad person. When you put someone in a kill or be killed, or kill or be killed of your children or your family, whatnot, those are hard decisions to make and be like, yeah, I definitely made the correct choice where the minimal amount of harm to anyone that I care about is going to happen, and like everything's hunky-dory. That's just kind of, for me, it's like, it wouldn't have happened if he wasn't there trying to eat people. So, like, Grace wouldn't have made those choices if there wasn't a crazy vampire trying to threatening her family and people and friends and whatnot. So, I really can't judge her that badly.
Something I thought was really interesting too. God, the fucking movie. Okay. Two things I thought were really interesting is like with Grace, to me, read as like an example of the potential consequences of somebody acting selfishly or singularly, and the impact that has on other people. And then with the core group, that being an example of the impact and consequences that can happen when you are focused on your own problem, specifically, and nothing else. Because like, Grace invited the vampires in after everybody had gone outside and got murked. They sent everyone outside because they were trying to figure out, they're like, oh shit, we gotta deal with him and his brother's dead or whatever. And so like, they zoned into this very specific problem, just theirs, and then ended up making it infinitely worse.
Or marry the people that to get them in the first place, because they were on the money issue.
Dealing with the other shit. They were focused on this very specific thing, and then like so just that of like all these little things of like little examples throughout life and culture of like how all these different decisions and things that happen have all these intertwining consequences and like issues and things and stuff, but like again, how could you look at any of those things individually and be like, you did wrong, or I wouldn't have done the same? And how do you deal with that? How do you fight that? How do you make that better? Like, the whole thing is such a fascinating, like, sociological breakdown.
Okay, we are running low on time. there's just so much to have been chosen from, and so much to talk about, so much to pack in.
Right.
I'm trying to pack in. You may or may not have noticed there is a resonator guitar here. It belongs to Scott Coogler, who's here in the audience. Scott, would you like to say a little bit about, maybe play a little bit about the, or at least speak as a musician as well as you, Aaron, because you're also a musician, about the music and the impact, the importance of the music to you as a musician, or what, and things that you especially noticed about how Ludwig Göransson went about crafting the music. What would you like
Actually, I can speak.
Okay.
The people who I learned from do not look like me. And I can say something about the music, but what hit me was much about what you were talking about. I walked away from that changed. Because I wanted to connect with Sammy. That's who I was looking to. That's not who I ended up connecting with. When I saw the circle, the dance, I realized, oh, I'm not Sammy, I'm Remick. Because one thing we haven't talked about is cultural appropriation, right? And that's the whole undercurrent of the music. The music completely talks about that. You don't you have these white folks coming in, and they're playing old-time music. It's kind of similar to what's going on in the juke joint, but it ain't that. So it's sort of like, no, you're not coming in here. So they just end up like taking everybody else and assimilating. And I realized, yes, I know how to play that. It's something I've been listening to since I was a kid, and yet at the same time, there's something that's going to be lost in all that. And so sort of like, I'd like to sit here and like, hey, it's really cool that we can all listen and play this music. But I realized that most of the folks who play that music, at least in the cities, I don't see any person of color playing that music at all. And I love it, but at the same time, there's Remick as a representation of what has happened. Hey, come in, we're gonna just take over and you're gonna take your souls. And so there's a part of me where I saw that music and I just bawled my eyes out because I realized that, oh, yeah, this is where I fit in. This movie is not made to make me feel comfortable. And I'm really okay with that. I mean, I'm not okay with it, but I'm sort of like, I'm not okay with any of this. But it's sort of like, never mind. I mean, the music is just genius, how it goes from, I also play Irish music too, so to have that is sort of like a double sort of, as a sort of direct message to what I do, it was really heavy and hard to handle, so, and that's okay, and that's really the point of it, is that this is not easy, there's no solution necessarily, except to sort of like look at it like this, and just go, okay, this is where everything is. Like everything you guys have been talking about is about, is dealing with this very messy history, and I'm not going to talk too much about it, but the music is essentially, it essentially carries the theme of that appropriation, of struggle, of oppression throughout it. I love though that Remick at the end gets killed by that instrument. And it's music that like saves the day, at least saves him. And let's not forget that at the end, when you see him as an older person, it's Buddy Guy, who grew up in the cotton fields, who is the last remaining person of that generation to represent that music. And I've never seen him play Rezo, and there he was on the screen. And again, I'm bawling my eyes out because I see history right there, and I know the history, and there he is kind of representing. So talk about representation. That was extremely important. And that's all I'm going to say.
And with the music also, with Sammy, to tie into your faith, when you said about faith, and like that was where Sammy's faith was. Sammy's faith was in the music. We are at really close to the hour, but really quick though, because like it could have been, like we could talk to the wee hours. But I would like to do a lightning round through the audience. Put your hand up, and then I'll try to call on as many people as I can. What is one of your favorite things from the movie? Yes, right there.
I appreciate that it's Jim Crow and sharecropper time, because this is a time period that does not get focused on very often. It is sort of transitory. It is half between the slavery and half between the more quote-unquote modern era, and it's just like, it's the ignored bit. It's the bit we can't talk about because it's too close to the reality of what we're all trying to ignore. Also, I love that Remick, the stanza of Rocky Road to Dublin. I look, something crossed my mind, then I look behind, and no bundle could I find upon me stick a wobbling. He looked back, he noticed that his culture, his connection to his people was gone and stolen from him, and he tried to steal it from other people. First time I ever actually got sad about a villain, man, it doesn't work like that. It can never come back. You're white now. Accept it.
With the glasses next to Louise Belcher.
A term that we know has been tossed around for a long time. We hear it, but like the first time I think I really saw it during the youth joint scene where everybody's dancing. Everybody talks about like the bringing of the history and everything like that. To me, that was the first time I ever was able to take the sounds of the words Black Joy and see it. To me, that's what all of that represented, us living our life to our fullest in the joy that we have. I've never seen it captured like that before.
Awesome, cool. Winnie.
Yeah, I want to bring up the power of company money to hold people down culturally and structurally. I love that that was in there because we forget how much we economically just kept such control over these communities.
I think I'll do two more. All right, in the glasses right there, second row.
Yeah, I absolutely, real quick, at the top of the film, there is, they mention the different cultures that have the power of music. And they list like the three cultures they list are the Native Americans, Black culture, and the Irish, and all three of those are like seen vaguely in the film, and I love how it ties it together with that with the uniting power of music.
Beautiful. And there was one, yes, with the red hair, the magenta hair, yes.
Oh, thank you. My favorite part about representation was that the Asian people were not prostitutes nor martial arts. Why they didn't start with Rocky Road to Dublin was they couldn't. It started with the Creepy Robin song because they believed that all was Sammy and the Jew. That's why they started with the Creepy Robin song, and they graduated from the road to Delta.
Yeah. It was like the Pat. It was like Pat Boone doing Tutti Frutti. Which is a real thing if you don't know that is a real thing, and you educate yourself of Pat Boone's version of Tutti Frutti. They need to know. And you only need to listen to it once. So thank you everybody for coming, and thanks to everybody up here at the table for joining us. Thank you, Scott, for bringing in your rezo. And yes, spread the love. Keep spreading the love about this film.
All right.
Keep appreciating it. And,